synagogues and prison, and you'll be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance, for I will give you words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You'll be hated all because of my name, but not a head of your hair will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. Please join me in a moment of prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable, O Lord, our rock and our blessed Redeemer. Amen. Jean Gray tells a story about an executive who commissioned a building project. One day, the executive approached a mason who was working on the job and asked him what he was doing. The mason replied, "I'm mixing water to make mortar, and that is going to tenderly and devotedly hold each of these bricks in place. And one by one, I'm going to set these bricks until they begin to take shape. They will rise, roll by roll to the heavens, and eventually form a tall tower of a building. It will be a court building. It will stand for years and years as a symbol of truth and justice. This edifice will stand as a beacon representing all that is right." "You idiot," the executive bellowed. "This is supposed to be a garage." In today's gospel lesson, we hear about a similar building project. A project with a prediction placed into Jesus' mouth about a century after the days when Jesus walked the earth. A project with a small and humble beginning. A project whose builders did not plan on a small garage. They planned on a tower that would stand throughout the ages. For the people who heard our lesson began the building of the church, Christ's body present and active on earth. We know the early Christian church was remarkably successful. Picture ourselves in their situation. Jesus had been just accused of sedition and crucified. The church's leaders were being arrested and harassed by the temple authorities. In short, to be a Christian was a dangerous thing. Growth in the Jerusalem church was mission-driven. As Christ was sent out by the Creator, we're sent out by Christ to do Christ's work in the world. We're to relate to each other and to the world in the same way that Christ related to us. At the time of Constantine, the purpose of the church became somewhat different. For Constantine made the church into an institution. Thus began the era of Christendom, a time when the church had many purposes. Many Christians still held to the church's original purpose of following in Christ's path. But the goal of the church as a whole became only the perpetuation of the institutional church and the state supporting it. When we jump forward to our own time, we find Christendom has come to an end. We're no longer actively supported by the state. People no longer automatically come through our doors. As a result, many congregations have shrunk in size, and those congregations who shrunk find the departure of Christendom means it's harder to maintain and recover stability. So here we are in the present time. Many congregations we find we're uncertain of exactly what our mission is to be, and that, from an organizational perspective, is a very big problem, affecting any large organization about its mission. An old issue of Homiletics magazine gives an example of an organization that lost sight of its mission. In the early days of 60s, Stephen Gaskin was teaching English at San Francisco State College. Then he created an open meeting he called the Monday Evening Class, in which he talked about hippie values and the way in which he believed psychedelic experiences related to world religion. When he took to the road, his students followed after him. And soon there was a wandering caravan of 400 people and 60 vehicles. Gaskin eventually settled down with his followers and started the farm, an ongoing Tennessee commune, which pioneered organic and alternative methods of agriculture, education, and social interaction. In 1972, the farm's rock and roll band began a series of coast-to-coast tours, playing in parks and student centers to promote their community. Many more members joined, and by 1975, there were more than 750 people living on the farm, including 160 married couples and 250 children. The farm formed a charitable institution called Plenty. And all over the next world, Plenty centers were set up. Over the next few years, the population of the center grew to 1,500 members. The annual number of visitors increased from 14,000 to 20,000. But then, in 1983, the farm changed from being a collective where all things were held in common, just like happened in the early church, to a cooperative. The population decreased dramatically. Today, the farm lives on, although it calls itself an intentional community of family and friends. It's down to about 200 people. There is, of course, quite a difference between a Presbyterian congregation and a 1960s commune, but the principle is the same. For a while, the farm was likely affected by changing times and values. They were even more impacted by the abandonment of their mission. In the same way, a congregation who wishes to grow must first ensure they are being true to the mission of a Christian congregation. They must be true to Christ's call to react to each other and to the world in the way that Christ did. During our time together, we've talked about how this congregation can find its part in Christ's mission. And I have to tell you, my sisters and brothers, I have never seen a congregation respond as well as you have. And I pray that you will respond to Pastor Mike in exactly the same way. M. Scott Peck tells a story about how a congregation can respond to a leader's words. You've heard the story twice before. I think it's time for you to hear it one final time before I leave you. Once upon a time, there was a monastery who had fallen on hard times. Once a great order, as a result of waves of persecution and the rise of secularism, all its daughter houses had been lost. It had become decimated to the point where there were only 5 elders, all nuns and monks, left in the decaying hermitage. The abbot and the 4 others were all over 70 years of age. Clearly, this was a dying order. In a deep wood surrounding the hermitage, there was a little hut in which a rabbi from a nearby town occasionally came for a retreat. Through their many years of prayer and contemplation, the elders became a bit psychic, so they could always sense when the rabbi was in their huts. The rabbi is in the woods, they would tell each other. The rabbi is in the woods again. As he agonized over the imminent death of the order, it occurred to the abbot to visit the hut to see if by any chance the rabbi could offer any advice to save the order. The rabbi welcomed the abbot at her hut. But when the abbot explained the purpose of his visit, the rabbi could only commiserate with him. I know how it is, she exclaimed. The spirit has gone out of the people. It's almost the same in my town. No one comes to shul anymore. So the old abbot and the old rabbi wept together and read parts of the Torah and quietly spoke of deep things. The time came when the abbot had to leave. They embraced each other. It's been a wonderful thing to meet after all these years, the abbot said. But I've still failed in my purpose for coming here. Is there nothing you can tell me? No piece of advice you can give me to help me save my dying order? No, I'm sorry, the rabbi responded. I have no advice to give. The only thing I can tell you is the Messiah is among you. When the abbot returned to the hermitage, the others gathered around him to ask, well, what did the rabbi say? She couldn't help, the abbot answered. We just wept and read parts of the Torah together. The only thing she did say, just as I was about to leave, was that the Messiah is among us. I don't know what she meant by that. In the days and weeks and months that followed, the elders pondered and wondered whether there was any possible significance to the rabbi's words. The Messiah is among us. Could she possibly have meant one of us here at the hermitage? If that's the case, who is it? Do you suppose she meant the abbot? Oh yes, if she meant anyone, she probably meant Father Abbot. He's been our leader for more than a generation. On the other hand, she might have meant Thomas. Certainly Brother Thomas is holy. Everyone knows Brother Thomas is a man of light. Oh, certainly. She couldn't have meant Sister Ellen. Ellen gets crotchety at times. But come to think of it, even though she's a pain in people's side, Ellen is virtually always right. Often very right. Maybe the rabbi did mean Sister Ellen. Well, surely not Brother Philip. Brother Philip is so passive, a real nobody. But then, almost mysteriously, he has a gift for somehow always being there when you need him and saying the right thing. Maybe Philip is the Messiah. Of course, the rabbi didn't mean me. She couldn't possibly have meant me. I'm just an ordinary person. Yet, supposing she did, supposing I'm the Messiah. Oh God, not me. I couldn't be that much for you. Could I? As they contemplated in this manner, the elders began to treat each other with extraordinary respect on the off chance one among them might actually be the Messiah. And on the off chance each elder might himself or herself be the Messiah, they began to treat themselves with extraordinary respect. Because the forest in which it was situated was so beautiful, it still happened people came occasionally to visit the hermitage, to picnic on its tiny lawn, to wander along some of its paths, and even now and then to go into the dilapidated chapel to pray. As they did so, without even being conscious of it, they sensed the aura of extraordinary respect that began to surround the five elders. There was something strangely attractive, even compelling about it. Hardly knowing why, they began to come back to the hermitage more frequently to picnic, to play, and to pray. They began to bring their friends, to show them their special place, and their friends brought their friends. And then it happened. Some of the youngest ones who came to visit the hermitage started to talk more and more with the elders. After a while, one asked if she could join them, and then another, and then another. Within a few years, the hermitage had once again become a thriving order, and thanks to the rabbi's gift, a vibrant center of spirituality to all the realm. You have begun a transformation from the congregational equivalent of the garage to a soaring tower. To continue, please remember three thoughts. Thoughts I ask you to keep in mind in the weeks and the months and the years ahead. First, remember your new pastor will not be me or Pastor John, or Pastor Kathy, or any of the pastors before us. Don't hold them to the standards you've held your previous pastors. Second, just take a moment and look around you. You are the living, breathing body of Jesus Christ. And also remember, Messiah is among you. God alone be glory.